Hi, Doug.
Hi.
I'm Joy. I'm JoyGenea, and welcome to the Different Thinkers podcast and video
Ooh, that's the
program.
title, The Different Thinkers.
You like that? Because that's what we
Yeah,
are.
I like
So
that.
today on the Different Thinkers podcast, we are talking with you, Douglas Wood, author of at least 40 books. We're clear on that. New York Times bestselling author in particular. You've also won a variety of awards. I'm just going to name a few: the Christopher Medal Award, the Abby Award, and a few others. And you have a new book coming out, which is A Wild Path, that comes out in the next couple of weeks, I believe. It'll officially be
I
available.
just I just ordered all my author copies today, and they should be here in 2 days, which is
Yes,
precisely just late enough that we don't have one to show you right now.
right,
Typically,
exactly.
it's planning.
It works. But in particular, today, we want to talk about I want to ask questions and learn more about your different way of thinking and your different way of navigating the world and how that's added to your success and how at times that's maybe been a little bit of a challenge.
Hmm.
And so I thank you so much for your time to join me and to have this conversation. It
I
it just means a lot.
always enjoy spending time with you, Georgina.
Thank you. So
And for
true transparency.
those
Yeah.
of you listeners who don't know, Georgina is my computer world digital helper, navigator, guide, guru, all those things, and very good friend.
I can take full credit for officially getting you into Facebook many
Yeah,
years ago.
yeah.
Yes, I will do that. So thank you. Just to start off with, what are your different ways of thinking? What are the things that you know about at this point that you're aware of?
Well, part of me thinks that I should have you answer that question because you see me from the outside, and you're often telling me, Doug, you do this, you do that, and I go, I do.
Oh
So
yeah.
so
There's
I don't know.
well, we have you ever officially been, this is perfect. Have you officially ever been tested for your neuro differences?
Yes,
When?
I don't remember.
Well, were you a
I'm not good with
elementary,
numbers and
college?
dates. But here's the deal. I know from reading and from my experience that I've had ADHD all my life. I had a terrible time in school, I had a terrible time in college, I had a terrible time in many ways throughout my life. But I didn't really know that I was having a terrible time. I just, you know, teachers and principals and adults would tell me I was not doing well and I was not living up to my potential. And I had to
Oh,
sit corner in the classroom in elementary school. I had to sit out in the hall and I had to go to the principal's office. And I just had this general feeling that I was a bad kid and that I was supposedly smart but couldn't live up to my potential. I hated that word potential. So
I do
this
too.
life. And then in my 50s, somewhere in my early 50s, there were these television commercials that were coming on at the time that would say, do you ever go into a room and forget why you went there? Do you lose your car keys 3 or 4 times a day? And I was going, yes, 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 yes. And then it would say, well, you might have adult ADHD. Go to our website, and I didn't know what a website was then, but go to our website and take this test and you'll find out. So eventually, after I saw that commercial about 100 times, I had Kathy help me go to the website. I took the test and I tried not to overdo it. I didn't
Right?
want to exaggerate my symptoms. So
Right.
I was
Good
very
plan.
moderate, I thought. And then I got this really high score. So I
Oh,
showed it to my wife, Kathy, and I said, did I answer these right? And was I overdoing this? She said, oh, no, no, no. So then I thought, I still didn't really believe it. So I thought, okay, I'll go and get a real professional opinion. So I looked I think we still had yellow pages at that time, whatever, and looked for people in the St. Cloud area, psychologists who might specialize in ADHD. And I
yeah.
found who specialized in adult ADHD. And I went
Nice.
to see him, and he gave me his own test. And he said, "No, Doug, you didn't exaggerate." He said, "You score very high." I don't I don't remember what the scoring system was, but I think I got a 38 out of whatever, out of 50 or 40 or something.
Oh,
And
nice.
anybody said, but it's not all bad news. We have ways of treating this now. And I said, okay. And he gave me a little pill, this cool little pill called Adderall.
Oh, yeah.
And he told me how to use it and how to take. I mean, he didn't just give me one; he gave me
Right.
enough pills. And I went home and took it at whatever time of day I was supposed to take it. Maybe it was nighttime. I don't know. And then the next day had the best day of my life. Not well, I mean, other days like getting married and having children
Oh
are
yeah,
better. But in terms of internally, it was just so, it was like a choppy lake, a lake with whitecaps being all smoothed out. And I went to the grocery store. I still remember this, and I didn't even take a list. And I just
oh,
remembered, we need this, and we need this, and we need that. And it was just the only word I can think of is just smooth. Everything was just smooth.
the memory was smooth, the thoughts were smooth.
Mhm.
Oh,
And I was able to
yes.
sit at this desk here, the one that this little computer is on, which is my business desk. And I hate my business desk because I hate answering stuff, I hate forms, I hate anything like that. And I sat there for like 6 hours and just did everything I needed to do. I love my writing desk. That's over there. That's okay.
Yep.
So anyway, it was a really good day. And I went to bed that night and my ears were ringing. And I thought, oh, whatever. And he had told me I might have trouble sleeping the first few nights. So
Yeah.
I had a little trouble sleeping, but I took my pill again. The next day I had another wonderful day, but my ears were ringing louder. And the
Oh.
third day, I had a third wonderful day, but my ears were really ringing loudly. So I called him up. I said, can this cause tinnitus? Can this cause ringing in the ears? And he said, well, very, very rarely, 1 in 1,000 something maybe. He
Oh
said, but
no.
you probably should stop taking it. And I said, don't worry, I just stopped. And and then of course, I expected the ringing would go away, but it never did. It was a permanent
Mm.
hearing loss, permanent tinnitus, which I still have. So that was it for the Adderall. And it seems like all of the ones that I'm aware of in that class of drug that treat it are vasoconstrictors, which gives me the tinnitus. And so that was it. I got those 3 days to see how the rest of the world kind of lives. And it was
Hmm.
really cool and really wonderful in a way and really frustrating in a way because I couldn't keep doing that. So I had to go
Yeah.
back to my normal coping mechanisms that I spent a lifetime developing, and that's what I do. And sometimes they work, sort of.
Nice. Were you ever officially diagnosed with dyslexia? So you got a diagnosis for the ADHD. How about the dyslexia?
Dyslexia, I'm self-diagnosed simply because of all the things that I've read and all the things that I know I had a terrible time with, including learning how to read, which I did learn, but I'm still a slow reader. I'm a smart guy. I'm a good reader, but I read
Hmm.
very slow. And math, even worse. I just could not follow the processes of math. And even though I grew up in a musical family and I'm a musician, I've always had an awful time reading notes. Just terrible. So in those ways, I know that I've got some form of dyslexia. It's not just the ADHD. And so that's pretty much self-diagnosed.
Now your first big um, book was Old Turtle, correct? Do you
Mm-hmm.
have a copy of that you can, for us
Just happen to
visual
have one
people?
right here. Okay, so here's Old Turtle. It is my
Yeah.
most well-known book. And again, it was, as you said, the first book I ever wrote. Yeah.
And when you when you wrote that book and when you were working on getting that published, was there another occupation that you had at the same time? Like how were you, because I know you had a career, in particular when after you got done with college and stuff, you were you I don't know what grade you
I
taught.
taught school. I taught school for 4 years, and
Okay.
I taught music in public schools. And then I took early retirement at the age of 25, which did not set us up really well as far as a pension or lifetime security goes. In fact,
that,
zero
that's
pension.
that's
But anyway,
okay.
I had discovered the books of a wonderful author named Sigurd Olson, and he took all the feelings that I had inside of me for the outdoors, the natural world, which is my primary love, my primary focus, and wrote these wonderful books about it. So I wrote to him and got a wonderful answer back, and all of that inspired me to quit my job and see if I could do with my music, which is the career you were just asking about. That became my career, my music. I wanted to try and do with music what Sigurd Olson did with books. So before Old Turtle came along, I was making my living as a musician, recording artist, performing artist, that kind of stuff.
And that's incredible that you had the courage to do that. And
Foolishness.
no, you weren't. What?
I have a saying when people used to ask me about setting off on their own, being a self-employed author, a
Right.
self-employed musician, I would say, no, don't do it. You only do it if it's the only thing you can do. If
Yeah.
your passion is that strong and you can't imagine do anything else, then do that. But it has to be that way. Does that
I
make sense?
That is beautifully said. That's just beautifully said because that is exactly how it goes. I think for different thinkers, we often we outnumber, like we're a vast majority of the entrepreneurs in the United
Mm.
States in particular,
Mhm.
but actually around the world. We are a huge majority of that group, and I do believe a big portion of that is the it gets to be the only thing all we can do is follow our passion. It's hard to
Yes.
kind of explain, but everything else is just not enough. And
Yes.
we feel very frustrated being asked to stay in boxes
I
that
hate boxes.
we don't do boxes well.
No, I like the outside of boxes, but not being
Right.
on the.
We'll decorate that. The heck
Yeah.
with it. But the inside, that's
Mm-hmm.
not so easy.
No, that's right.
I'm curious as a different thinker, and you're a very successful different thinker, and you've navigated your way through that without titles. I want to go back a little bit. Growing up an ADHD dyslexic kid in Iowa, correct?
Yes.
How did you learn to read? Like what it typically involves some intervention by a family member, a friend, the school system. Like it typically, when we're going
Yeah.
back quite a few years.
Stay right there. Don't go away.
Yep.
Is it not here? Come on. Well, it's not there
Oh,
because I'm ADHD and I never know where anything is. But anyway, there should be a book there on my shelf called Miss Little's Gift. And Miss Little was the teacher that made a huge difference for me. My grandmother loved to read. She had this little library that was like a little setback nook in the house, and I loved to sneak into her little library and sort through all the books. And my Aunt Mary was a school teacher, and she loved to read, and they read to us and read to me. And but I went off to school and was the worst reader in the class in first grade and the worst reader in the class in second grade. But my second grade teacher, Miss Little, saw something in me. And I remember she asked my parents, would it be all right if I keep Douglas after school, like every day, to practice reading? And so it was a horrible idea. I hated it. I hated school. I hated sitting in the desk. I hated being indoors. Wasn't even sure I liked Miss Little. But she that's what she did in those days. We kids, we didn't ride school buses, we all walked to school. And so she would keep me after school for, I don't know, half an hour most days, just to give me that extra help reading. Now, did she? I don't think anybody knew about ADHD or dyslexia. I don't think so in the 1950s.
no, it was really new.
Yeah, so it wasn't that. It was just being patient and being encouraging and helping Douglas and putting a hand on his shoulder and saying, take your time, you can do it, and helping me sound words out, which I understand isn't the way to go anymore. There's other
Oh,
ways
it's
of
not the worst thing. It's
not the worst.
yeah, they made a loop in education, just a little segue. They made a loop in education where they were attempting visual cue reading.
Mm-hmm.
So like there'd be a picture and then you should guess what the word is down below.
Mm-hmm.
They have definitely decided that is not science based and not really good. So learning to sound it out actually is much above that one. That one came
Well,
in pretty low.
to be truthful, it was a long time ago. I don't remember all the details. What I do remember is a wonderful teacher who had the patience and the interest in one particular student to take that time and make that huge. It was like having Miss Little as my teacher and having Miss Little as my personal mentor. So that's a lot of extra commitment for a teacher. And so I wrote that book about her. Wish I could show it to you. And I do show it every time I visit schools, which I visit a lot of schools. And I talk about my ADHD and my dyslexia. And I talk to boys and girls. I talk to whole audiences. And I'll say, has anybody ever heard of ADHD? And, most of the hands go up. Does anybody know anybody who might have been? A lot of hands go up. I don't ask them if they personally have ADHD, but they're very aware of it. And then I tell them my story, and I tell them Miss Little, how Miss Little helped me. So I feel like I'm paying her back a little bit when I do that.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I asked a few of my friends who are not random, actually, they were random people in a checkout line. If I were to be interviewing somebody, a renowned author who also happens to be neurodiverse and dyslexia and ADHD, I'm like, what questions would you want to ask him? It's quite interesting. I got a few people around me discussing. And it's odd these days to even be in a checkout line, but I had too much stuff. And so these are from non-neurodiverse people. And they were asking,
as far as we know,
right, undiagnosed. Are there any hard parts of dealing with or being a different thinker? Are there any
yeah, it's it's all hard. And that doesn't mean there aren't any good parts,
Right. No, we're getting to those.
There's the on the one hand and then on the other hand. And so it's okay.
What do you think is one of your greatest weaknesses? Like, what's one of your more darn thing gets in the way of your neurology?
Being organized.
Yeah.
And remembering stuff. and but that's not the biggest. The biggest might be because I had this lifetime of being a student, being in school, failing so many times, being told I wasn't trying hard enough, being told I wasn't living up to my potential, being told I wasn't. Boy, that light is hitting us really funny now, isn't it?
There we go.
Anyway.
Not bad.
So I think the hardest thing is having all this baggage of failure and thinking that there's something wrong with you. That's the hardest thing. Because then no matter what it is that you want to try, whatever you want to tackle, whatever your goals might be, whatever the social situations might be, you're always dragging that along behind you, or it's sitting on your shoulders like an extra weight. Like, I might not be able to do this. I might fail at this. People might not like it. People might not like me. I don't know if there's a name for that in the neurodiverse world, but it's a thing. It's real. And that's the hardest thing.
You said that so well. It's like you work with words. That is.
Sometimes I have my moments.
Well, that was really nice. And I think a lot of the community, we would agree with you. Mm-hmm. Definitely. That is a thing. What's interesting, while it's one of our greater challenges, on the other side of that, because we are dragging around that really heavy backpack, mm-hmm. we have really strong muscles for resilience. Because of that, they are finding we're some of the most resilient people. They want us in groups. They want us leading as dyslexic thinkers, as different thinkers, because we are ridiculously resilient, because we have picked that backpack up so many times and walked through those doors so many times, like, oh, well, like so you're right. It is this thing that we're always dragging around, and because of that, a lot of us have this exceptional resilience muscle now.
And I think that's like most muscles, like doing push-ups or pull-ups, it's one that you have to use.
Yes.
And the more you use it, the stronger it gets. And unfortunately, I think there are many people in this ADHD dyslexic world that don't get that don't know they've got that muscle, don't get the chance to use it and strengthen it and keep using it. I know that.
Yes.
I went through some terrible depressed times And it was after I went through them and had counseling and learned more about who I was and how my brain works that I was able to then access that resiliency and make it a real part of me. But I would not say that I had that wonderful resiliency when I was in elementary school or high school or even college. It was just a matter of dragging around the heavy weight all the time and trying to succeed at something. And it wasn't until my 30s that I would say that that really kicked in. And then, as you probably know, there are still days the resiliency doesn't work.
For
I'm just
all of us.
yeah, I'm just down today. I'm down this week. I don't feel good about myself. I don't want to do that. I don't think I can succeed at that. And we have to fight our way through that if we
Mhm.
have discovered that resiliency and if we believe in it. And then there are days you just forget that you have it or you don't really believe in it, and then you got to rediscover it. Does that make sense?
I love the term rediscovering it. I'm going to steal that. I think in the ADHD dyslexia word in the neurodiverse world, that because of the memory issues, the short-term memory issues and so
Yeah.
forth, I
Yes.
think that word is a really good, that's a great way to term it. We are consistently rediscovering something. We will quick example of that is I had a client who hired me to help her finish writing a class that she had been working on, a workshop class that she'd been working on. And one of the first things I said, well, gather all the things you've been like putting together to like create this. She spent a month digging through file drawers, like every notebook, like she gathered it all. And when we sat down, she had been writing the same workshop 10 times.
Ah.
She'd rewritten it a little bit. We took parts, but when what we realized is we started to divide it out by the years. She'd been writing the same, but because it never got completed, her again, back to your passion, she was meant to be doing this. This was what she
Yeah.
was supposed to be doing. So it kept coming back. She kept rewriting it, but again, she kept rediscovering it. Um,
Hmm.
and that is how it goes. Like it's not uncommon now, and I see it more.
Hmm.
Um, but you're right. Without understanding that resilience and without rediscovering things, it is tough. It's tough to
I,
get back up.
I think that a good thing for us to do, people like us, is to
Yes.
keep a journal. And I didn't start keeping a journal until in my 30s. Um, and I'm not like I don't write what I have for breakfast in the morning and what
I
I
was gonna
do.
say, what do you journal? What would you put in a journal?
I journal thoughts, discoveries, thoughts, rediscoveries, things that
Okay.
things that I keep working through. And the reason it's good is because I can go back. I can be struggling with something or have a new insight on something and look back and go, oh, 5 years ago I was working on that same thing. And this is what I thought about it then, and this is how I worked on it then, and this is how I'm working on it now. For we writers, life is not like a brand new day every day. I've got a whole attic full of stuff up here, a whole lifetime full of stuff that's disorganized and like people keep in an attic. You just throw it up there and it's there somewhere, and you forget that it's there, and then you got to rediscover it. But we work with stuff, authors do, that for years and years at a time. When I wrote the book you asked about earlier, Old Turtle, I wrote it in half an hour, literally. And true,
Wow.
it's not a long book. It's not War and Peace, but still, that's pretty quick.
Yeah.
But when people ask me how long it took to write Old Turtle, I tell them a half an hour and 30 years.
That's that all.
Yeah, because it was 30 years of pondering and dreaming and wondering and fooling around with the ideas and the concepts in that book. And then it was ready to
Mm.
come out. But authors do that. I just finished this new book. Here it is. It didn't come today, as I said. Well, it's going to come later today when we're done. Probably about the
Right,
time.
right, right.
But
It'll
anyway,
time
this is
itself.
the book. It's called this one on this side, A
Oh yeah,
Wild
yeah.
Path. And The
Nice.
Wild Path is a memoir, and it's kind of an outdoor memoir because of my outdoor life. Anyway, the first sentence in the book is, I'm an ADHD person. That's the very first sentence in the book. And
Wow.
and then but then because it's a memoir, I go back and I'm remembering many experiences, wilderness trips I've led and experiences with my family and all kinds of things going back 30 or 40 years. And the other memoir I did before that one, this one, Deep Woods, Wild Waters, again, this goes back to when it starts when I'm 7 years old, all the way up to now, with various experiences that fit within that context. So we're always working through stuff that we've maybe worked through before and worked through at different parts in our life. That's true as an author, and I think
Mhm.
it's true as an ADHD person. So the journaling may eventually become, something like this or contribute to it. But even if you're not an author, even if you're not going to write a memoir, it helps you keep track of who you are and what you're doing. Because I don't know if other people are like this, but I just lose track. I spiral off into a million different interests, and we're bombarded by all the external stimuli and information every day, and
Mhm.
and it's useful to just keep track of who you are and what you're about. And another thing I would say is, for me, again, this was in my 30s, I discovered meditation, and what an essential part of life that really can be. So because again, we everything in our world is telling us to get up, get out of the chair, get busy, do this, do that, get this project done, meet those people, get those emails answered, do your phone calls, pursue your career. And there's really nothing in our society that says, just sit down and be quiet.
So the word meditation means so many things these days. For you, what does meditate like? What would that look like for you if you took a time out to do
Yeah.
a
So I
meditation?
don't even like the word meditation because it sounds too much like medication. So,
You're right. It
so I
does.
seldom use it. I wanted to be clear, so I used it.
Yes.
But when I'm really talking, and I don't talk a whole lot about it with people, it's a very personal, private thing, but I just call it stillness. So if you're a hunter, and I've been a hunter in my life, and I'm a fisherman, and I'm a person that just likes to be in the woods and listen for a red squirrel trilling or a blue jay screaming, and it's just about being still and quiet. So if you're being still, you stop your feet from bouncing up and down. You make your knees hold still. You instead of bouncing in and out of the chair, you just stay in the chair. So that's being still, but that's only making your body still. So
Hmm.
I call it stillness because I like to find a good spot. I've got a favorite stream. I like to sit next to the stream, use the flowing water as a kind of a mantra.
Hmm.
Doesn't matter. You can do it anywhere. You can do it in a taxi cab, an airplane, an airport. It doesn't matter. But anyway, you get still, and then you begin to just gradually work on making your mind still as well. And the thoughts will come. That's okay. You don't have to judge them. You don't have to get mad that a thought came along. You just watch it along and then watch it go away, and keep trying to return to that spot where you're not really thinking about anything. You're just being still. So that's how I do it. That's how I call it.
Thank you. That Thank you. That is so helpful, and those are very good tools in
Mm-hmm.
in presence. What you're talking about is in presence.
Presence, and another word for it is mindfulness. That's a
Yes.
good word that's used a lot there. Mm-hmm.
Over the years, I got another great question. Over the years, what have you learned are the gifts of your different thinking, of your dyslexic and ADHD thinking?
Well, that took a long time to actually realize and understand and believe that there are gifts. When I was in my 20s or 30s, or I would have said none, zero. There aren't any, there aren't any gifts. It's just hard. So
Right?
I've had to learn and appreciate and read and discover that, you mean the thing that I'm good at, that might have something to do with ADHD. Well, that's nice. So I'm kind of late to that party, but yeah, I'm really creative. I love to create. I can sit in that desk over there that I mentioned, my writing desk, for 8 or 10 hours and not get bored and not get tired, because I do, I guess, what you call hyper focusing.
Yep.
I'm really good at hyper. I'm terrible at focusing, but I'm really good at hyper focusing.
Right?
So that is a gift, I guess. If you're going to be an author, if you're going to write long books that are 300 pages long, that's good to be able to sit still and do it. And that's about as close in my regular life as I get to meditating. To me, writing is another form of meditating. My mind is not being still. True, it's working through all kinds of thoughts and ideas, but my body is still, and everything else is still, and I'm really focused. And so that's a gift. As you know, I like to ride a motorcycle too. And that's
Mhm.
perfect because I'm being perfectly still and going really fast at the same time, right? I mean, the only thing that's moving
Yes.
is my right handle and throttle a little tiny bit. Everything else is still, but I'm zooming through the world. That's so cool. I love that. Not that that's a particular gift, but it's similar kind of to writing. My brain is going really fast, but it's channeled and it's focused. So that's a thing. I write songs, I write music. Um, well, when I visit schools and I talk to the kids about having ADHD and what hard time I had in school, and then they might have hard times too, and all that. And then when I get to the end of that talk, I'll say, and I tell them about Miss Little, and I tell them
Mhm.
about Miss Little having me read a book called The Little Island. It was a Caldecott winner back in like 1950 or so, and that was one of the books she used to teach me how to read. And I hold it up and I show them the book, The Little Island. And then at the end of the talk, I'll say, well, do you know that I've written whatever it is, 39, 40 books. I've written hundreds of songs. I play the banjo, the guitar, the dobro, the mandolin, the violin, the piano. I write children's book. I write adult books. I'm an artist. I draw. I give talks all over the country. I guide wilderness trips. I have my own island. I ride a motorcycle. I love to go. Do you know why I do all these things? And they go, and I say, because I have ADHD. That's why. I can't just sit still and do just one thing all day like we have to do in school and at a desk. That's hard for me. But because I have ADHD, I have a lot of energy and a lot of interests and a lot of passions, and so I do all this cool stuff. So that's how I answer the thing about the gifts, I guess.
I love it. On the same note about gifts, I'm curious, as you've learned about ADHD and as you've learned about dyslexia more, how do you see? I'm curious. In that category, a mass majority of the people are highly creative and visual thinkers. And so
Mm,
I want to ask a little bit about your writing style. When you're when you're writing, is it you kind of describing a movie in your head or a situation? Like, I'm curious if there's visual parts to it.
definitely, yes. I don't think I can describe it as like describing a movie.
Okay.
Maybe I never thought about that before. I wrote this new book's got 31 essays in it. Deep Woods Wild Waters has 37 essays. Each one of those is about, almost all of them are about a particular experience, a particular memory. And so when I'm writing those, I do see it in my mind's eye. I picture that campsite. I picture that motorcycle ride. I picture that rapids. I picture myself in the canoe going down the rapids. So yeah, maybe that's an accurate way of saying it. Yeah.
Okay. I when when I've had the chance, when you are writing something creative, because we are friends, there have been times when you're writing something and you'll share parts of it. Your physical demeanor always shit it I am always clear that you're there. When you're kind of reading through it and stuff, I've always been like, oh, he's there. He's
Hmm,
bringing us into what he has seen. And in re-experiencing it, you're telling us all of the emotions and the feelings that are that go with that experience. And that's one of the things I'm going to take a moment to say that's one of the things I really like about your writing. And I think your dyslexia and ADHD is part of why you write at that level, because you
yeah.
are taking in so much and you are remembering it from a experience perspective. Like, I'm having this experience and I'm feeling these great things, and so this is moving into my memory palette, like it's moving into a permanent state. And I it's great.
We will put that on silent mode. There, sorry about that. Um, that all sounds true. Um, and I don't know if this factor has anything at all to do with ADHD and dyslexia, but I'm a very emotional person, as you know. And I have an editor at one of my publishing companies, and I was working on a book about an experience from my childhood. I think it was about my granddad and relationship with my granddad when I was 10, 11 years old. And I don't know what the discussion was about, but my editor, Liz, said, Doug, most people cannot access their emotions like you do. And I said, I didn't understand. I said, what do you mean? Well, they're not that accessible. They don't go there into those deep emotions as you do. And I said, oh, I didn't know anything about it. But as I thought about it, because it was an interesting thing she said, and I thought about it, and then I began to realize that and I don't know if you've ever had this, when I'm searching for a memory, and it's right on the tip of your brain, and you can't find it, there's whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow I discovered, by just being aware of myself, where my process is, that I find the emotion first. I find I don't say these words, but I find how was I feeling, and if I can find the feeling, then I can remember the thing, the picture, the movie, the event. But I
Yep.
go to the emotion first. Isn't that interesting? I think it's interesting. I don't.
That's okay. So one of the top five strengths of dyslexia in particular is empathy. They've charted it. We have extremely high amounts of EQ, emotional intelligence. And so I would definitely tell you that is in your gift category. That's in your strength category. And
I would believe that.
absolutely. And
Sorry for my clock. That's my bird clock up there. It
oh,
has a different bird that sings at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. So who was that? That was I can't see from here, and I forgot who that was. But
well,
anyway,
there's a great example of, by the way, the power of simple things to help a time blind person know that an hour has passed. Right? Like
yeah.
I have a variety of clients that have clocks like that, and I've encouraged some to get them for that reason. I said, you need to understand when an hour passes so you can choose to sit there or or decide on something else or what have you, but you're so time blind, you don't feel any time passing.
I have a terrible time with time. We've talked about this before. In the
Yeah.
short term, being ready for something at a certain hour or minute of the day, or knowing how much time has passed, or in the long term, I'll say, Kathy and I will be driving, and I'll say, oh, there's that place that's a new business, isn't it? Just in the last year, so it's Cat Doug. That's been there for 10 years. Or
Yeah.
any event, and I'll think that was 2 years ago. No, that was 14 years ago. It all kind of blurs and stretches, and so I think Einstein had it right. It's very relative. It's very relative to
I like that. He was right. It is very relative.
Right.
I have
Not
just
that
a
he needs
couple.
money.
Well, he did pretty good. Gotta say,
He did
he's
okay.
another.
He was
He
probably ADHD and dyslexic too.
they've not officially, but both organizations tend to claim him. That's what I would say. Is there weren't official titles, but I would say his form of thinking lends itself
Oh
to our
yeah,
group.
absolutely.
Yes, there's a wide variety of those.
He was not doing what he was supposed to be doing
No,
when he
not at all.
discovered the general theory of relativity. He was supposed to be working as a clerk in a I forgot what it was, a postal clerk or some kind of a
Patent
clerky
office. He did that for a while, I think.
patent office. That's it. Yes.
Yep.
And he was not doing that. He was sitting around what we call daydreaming,
Yes,
wasting time,
absolutely.
wasting time. And
Good
I've been
thing.
accused all so often through my life of wasting time and daydreaming. One of my teachers said, Doug always has both feet firmly planted in midair. And well, yes, I've taken pride in that.
Yes,
And
that's the
so did
gift.
Einstein. Yes.
Yes, he did. If so, we've talked about different thinking. We've talked about school and some journeys through that. If when we think about being a different thinker, if there was one thing you could change in the whole world about how different thinkers go through life, what might be one thing? If there was one thing you could shift, change.
Well, I think I would come back to the thing that I mentioned a number of minutes ago, which is how we feel and how we're made to feel. And that's why I talk the way I do to students when I visit schools. And I will tell
Mhm.
you the story I tell them. When I come to the end of that little spiel and I'm talking about ADHD, and I tell the students, I said, I've thought a lot about this ADHD stuff. And I said, and I'll say, you all know what those letters mean, right? Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And I'll say, there's one of those words that I don't like. You want to guess which one? Oh, they don't have any trouble guessing. Oh, disorder. I said, right. Now, if you have blue eyes and I have brown eyes, do you have a disorder? And they shake their heads. And if you have beautiful strawberry blonde red hair and I have brown hair, do I have a disorder? No. If my skin is white and yours is brown, does one of us have a disorder? No. And I say, so bodies can be different, right? Mm-hmm. Well, then maybe brains can be different too. And we can have different ways of thinking. And then I tell them this little story. I'll tell them that I've imagined, because one of the things that's difficult about being ADHD is the time we live in. And if you're a student in this time, or just a person, a lot of your time is generally meant to be spent sitting in a desk, sitting at a desk, sitting still for hours at a time. And I'm not good at that. And I say, sometimes I've imagined, what if I would have been born in a different time, the time of the cavemen? You know, one of the things that cavemen and cavewomen didn't have to do was sit in a desk for 8 hours. They were just out and about all the time. And let's imagine that we have a clan. We have our little clan of cavemen and cavewomen. And in our clan, there's somebody who's really good at sitting still for a long time and just doing one thing. And I'll say, is that me? And they all laugh and they shake their heads. No, it's not me. But it's good to have people like that. And this person is so good at concentrating that we've given this person a really important job. This person is the arrowhead maker. And it's an important job because we're hunting people. And if we don't have good arrows and good arrowheads, we might starve. And so this is a good thing to do. But I can't do that. I can't sit still and just focus on one thing because I'm noticing everything all the time. And then I say, well, one night, we're sitting around the campfire, and sneaking around the campfire through the bushes is a saber-toothed tiger. And he's very hungry, because they always are. Now, is the arrowhead maker going to notice the saber-toothed tiger? No. Am I going to notice the saber-toothed tiger? Yes, because I notice everything, right? And then I'll say, now, who is going to get eaten by the saber-toothed tiger? Me or that guy? And they all go, that guy. And they start laughing. And I'll say, well, now who has the disorder? I'd say getting eaten by a tiger is a pretty bad disorder. And then there's all kinds of crazy laughter. And I've seen kids cry when I say that, and hugging each other. And what it is, it's just my silly way of saying there's not something wrong with you. And you don't have to feel bad about being the way you are. And if there hadn't been ADHD people who could escape saber-toothed tigers, none of us would be here now. There wouldn't still be ADHD people walking around. So it can't be such a bad thing. And maybe we can remember that when the saber-toothed tigers of this world are telling us we're not good enough or there's something wrong with us. Maybe we can remember that little thing. So that's the way I like to think about it.
That's lovely and perfect, like just so well said. Thank you, Doug. Is there anything else we haven't covered that you want to talk about or point out when it comes to being an out-of-the-box different thinker who's highly successful and highly passionate and living their life?
And some days not successful. Some days still having trouble. And
still human, still neurodiverse.
Still needing help to figure out how to do a computer or do this or that. We need help, and every human being does. Everybody needs extra help sometimes, and so I'm not able to take the medications that help some people. I've learned the things I've learned, and I've read what I've read, and I've had people like you and my wife Kathy that are patient with me and understand me and help me, and then I've learned that yes, there are gifts along with the things that are hard. So I think you've done a really good interview. These have been really good questions, and I don't have anything more that I need to add. I think that's good.
Remind us again of the new book that's coming out. I'm excited to promote it. I believe I might be mentioned in there somewhere for my tech guruism.
I think, yes, you are somewhere.
I am. So I'm going to have to get myself a copy. Might even have to send one to my mom.
You're definitely in the chapter called Computer Class for the Bronze Age.
I
Got you
love
in
it.
one. And you might be in some other spots too, but there for sure. Oh, and you're in the motorcycle essay too. Definitely.
Yes.
Yes.
Me,
Anyway, the book is
motorcycle.
called A Wild Path, PATH, and it's just about my path through life, which has much of the time been through wild places and with wild creatures. And so if people like the outdoors and if they want to know a little bit more about my little ADHD life and how things have all worked out, that would be the book.
Perfect. I thank you so much for your time, your talents, your abilities. Just thanks for spending time with us and helping us to learn more about you and how like all of this comes together every day. Thank you,
Thank
Doug.
you, Regina.